that you guys are here tonight. Why don't you raise your hand if you were here last week? All right, everybody in the room, beautiful. And so I'm glad that you guys are again here this evening. Of course, every week is going to build on the last week as far as your knowledge goes in the 5 essentials. And the idea is to help you to transform your life so that, of course, you can be kind of that circle of influence for other people. So, Dr. T?
So, Dr. Elise started with a pretty inspirational story about transformation last week. That was a good mindset shifter. So I have one to share myself. It's about one of our patients. Her name's Esmeralda. And before she started here in the office with us, she had a whole host of things going on. Severe asthma, heart issues, severely overweight. Her health was declining, and she was just struggling with herself and her family, okay? And when she found Max Living, when she found the chiropractor, she came in and she dove in head first. She took it all on. She was taking care of her nervous system. She started living the 5 essentials, and the next thing you know, life started to change. No more asthma treatments, no more hospital visits, less heart issues, lost over 50 pounds. And she's not changing her life, she's changing her family. Because this is for generations to come. Her husband's in here, her daughter, and her 2 grandbabies as well. She's being a health warrior. And guys, I want to say one last thing about her. She just told me that she was just in here. I said I was going to share her story because she's so proud and she wanted to stay, but she couldn't. But she said that she was on 14 medications when she came in. Now she's only on 4.
Wow.
So she's making life changes.
Okay.
Not too long ago, she was diagnosed with COVID-19, okay? If she never started in this office, if she never took control of her health, she had all the top risk factors of having serious detrimental effects from COVID, right? She's still here. She supported her body.
Not only that, but she stayed at home.
She stayed at home.
She had a mild case of it. So,
her immune system's working. But that's what tonight's about, right? This whole 6 weeks, it's about your story. And you becoming the health warrior you were meant to be, right? And then Dr. Elise, can you just give us a good recap?
yeah, so last week, just to remind you guys, even though you were all here, you know, the whole takeaway from last week is there's really 2 models that you can choose to live in. Before we met Esmeralda, she was living in the reactive disease model. She was living in the I can eat whatever I want, I don't have to move, I don't have to get adjusted until I get a symptom, until I get a diagnosis. And unfortunately, it took her to get to that point to really do something for her life, but now she realizes 10 medications less, no more asthma, no more back pain, not going to the hospital. She's not going to stop doing what she was doing. She's going to keep moving forward with it because now it's about being proactive in her health overall. And so we always teach you the power that made the body heals the body. And it reminds me of faith without works is what? And so the power that made the body heals the body, but faith without works is dead. What that means is God can heal you all day, and He gives you that promise, but understand you are the one that has to take action in your health the same way Esmeralda did in order to see change in your health overall. And so you guys had a little bit of homework last week, not too bad, right? And so the homework or the challenge was to take a look at your morning routine and to perhaps come up with something new to add to it. And so I just wanted to open it up and maybe get some perspective from you guys or some sharing on your morning routine, if that influenced you at all, or maybe when you were going through your thoughts, traumas, and toxins, anything that you noticed or that kind of moved you. David.
So it kind of goes with what you were saying last week about how you start your morning. And so I just put, well, before I go to bed at night, I put my top 3 things, the things that I want to tell myself, on my mirror in the bathroom with a dry erase marker. And then I said, I read my top 3 in the mirror, then I repeat my top 3 times each, and then I write all 3 of them down 3 times on Post-it notes and scatter them around in my house.
Awesome. I love it. How'd you feel this week?
I feel better.
That's good.
I feel, well, in my mind, I feel like I'm progressing.
Yeah. One of the books I'm reading right now, I might have mentioned it too last week, it's called personality isn't permanent. We're going to start to read it as a team. But it talks about how gratitude, there's so much research behind gratitude. It sounds so silly and so froofy. I think I shared this with you last week, but how gratitude literally decreases inflammatory markers. They did a study of heart disease patients, and they looked at those who had heart disease, went through conventional treatment, and then they looked at people with heart disease who did conventional treatment and added on 8 weeks of a gratitude journal. And the people with the gratitude journal literally had drastic improvements in heart disease compared to the people that didn't do it. And so that's so huge. It's huge for your health. And if you can start to set that mindset for the rest of your life, that does big things for you overall. So thanks for sharing. That's awesome. Anybody else? All right.
The old me was get up and complain that I ate, complain of what I had to do for the day. The last week me was get up and pray first, give thanks. 5 positive things that I want to say to myself. You are beautiful, you can do this, get up, nothing hurts, and work on it. And it has made a difference.
Tell us how.
I don't hurt.
Wow.
I hurt, but I don't hurt like I was hurt.
Yeah.
And it's, I want to say it's mental.
Oh, yeah.
Because I get up and then I'm just doing other stuff, getting ready because, I have my mom at home. And it didn't hurt.
It's good. I'm going to talk about why here tonight in a second. So that's really good. I'm so glad that you shared. Thank you, Michelle. Anybody else? One more. All right, Miss Amber.
Wake up and give thanks, to characters and everything, and then we walk 2 miles a minute. I used to get up at 5:30 in the morning, now we get up about 4:30 in the morning, go for a 2-mile walk, come home, eat better than we were. Our lifestyle was needed to change dramatically, and then
And you brought your significant other with you this week. That's awesome. That's good. And how was this week for you?
it's good.
It's good.
Wake up in a good mindset, instead of being rushing to work and everything, you have time to, get up and do things, move around, get motivated and stuff for the day, and then listen to some motivational speakers and stuff throughout the morning. So there was a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 rule. I don't know if you've heard of it or anything.
I haven't, but cool.
A lot of people really like that.
Oh yeah, get out of bed. Yeah.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, get up, do it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So,
Yep.
everything.
Don't think, just do. Yeah. Yep. Cool. Sweet. All right. So you guys are going to have a little bit of homework this week too. So I still challenge you to take a look at those thoughts, traumas, and toxins, and to keep that evolving as we go through the next several weeks, because you're going to get some tangible tools the last few weeks on nutrition, detox, exercise, and with the nervous system. And then also this week I want you to come up with one thing that you're going to pick to choose to change this week moving forward. Just one thing that you get from today that you're going to add on to your morning routine overall. And then I gave you guys one of my favorite books. It's called The Alchemist. It's a story. It's been translated in like 50 different languages across the world. It's that good. And it's just a fable, but it's a fable that I think really speaks to purpose. And so you don't have to come back and talk about it, but if anybody gets through it this week and wants to share what they learned or what their big takeaway was, my favorite quote I wrote on your homework sheet, it's something to the extent of, and when you want something, the entire universe conspires to make it happen. And he says it a little bit more eloquently, but I believe that. I believe the energy of the universe, the energy of God is in your favor if you want something. All you have to do is be available and allow God to bless you. And so that's going to be your homework for this week, and we'll talk about that briefly at the end.
Okay. I want you to do some imagination right now. So think of like just some island. You've seen the show Lost, right? They fall on the island and it's so beautiful. Fresh, green, crisp air, birds flying around everywhere. And humans find it. Okay, we find it. And then we inhabit it. And then we start living life, and then trash starts to pile up over time. And it starts to get so bad, it starts to stink, flies come, and then all of a sudden these rats. And then the rats keep coming, and they keep coming, and it became a big problem where city council goes, all right, we got to figure something out, so let's meet and figure out what we need to do. So does anyone have ideas how to get rid of the rats? Well, one guy walks up, he's like, I got some poison, we can poison them, get rid of them. Okay, if we poison the rats go away, but then they come right back, right, a couple weeks later. Another guy comes up, he's like, well, we can be a little humane and at least trap them and kind of move them away. That gets rid of the rats, right? But what happens because the trash is still there? The rats come right back, right? So for some reason they couldn't find the answer. If you guys were in that city council meeting, what would be the best option to get rid of the rats? Exactly. Get rid of the trash, right? So that's already divorcing the model, that disease reactive model that Dr. Elise talked about last week. That's the health model, getting to the cause of the problem, focusing on what you have within you. That's exactly what Esmeralda did, right? No more disease model, health model, supporting her body to the fullest.
Last week we talked about the gene theory, right? And we kind of blew a hole in the gene theory, how your genes are not your destiny. Sure, your genes are like a loaded gun, but it's your decisions that pull the trigger and allow those genes to be expressed, right? So the gene theory, there's a very small percentage, 0.01%, which is nobody in this room, that is destined by their genes, but we don't have to worry about the gene theory. And so the other thing that the disease model really holds on to is the germ theory. And so Dr. T, tell us about the germ theory.
If you guys heard of it, raise your hand. Germ theory? One or a couple of you. Okay, so germ theory created in the 1860s by a guy named Louis Pasteur. So it's basically, it is what it sounds like. The germ theory states that a germ causes disease, right? So let me just put this into perspective first. Scientists say that we inhale around 100,000 germs a day, and of those 100,000, 1,000 of those are different types. There's 1,000 different types of germs. So if there are that many germs, we should be all sick, correct? Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay, so two things that the germ theory left out. The first thing is a germ just doesn't happen. So first of all, a germ is microscopic, right? You can't see it. And it doesn't just attack you, but it needs a host to cause an effect. Make sense? And that host must be susceptible to that effect, right? So a weakened, compromised host, and this is where the terrain theory comes in right here. So germ plus a host equals the outcome. If you have a germ and then you have a susceptible or a weakened immune system, that could possibly mean you may experience symptoms and get sick, right? If you have a germ and a strong supported immune system, the outcome's totally different. So we all know, and we heard last week about supporting your immune system, supporting what God gave you, right, through the 5 essentials, taking care of yourselves. And as we move forward through...
Can I say just one thing? Like, I just think it's important to realize that, the germ theory says this: germ equals outcome, right? They put all the hands, all the power goes into the germ. When all the power is in the germ, you better walk around wearing a mask. You better sanitize everything, because the power is in coming to contact with the germ. If a germ comes in contact with you and it's lurking somewhere, Dr. T is automatically, has cough, sneezing, disease, that kind of thing. And so I think what we have to understand, though, the reason that this doesn't make much sense, like poke a hole in that for a second. Why is that wrong? Germs cause disease. Yeah, and?
Not all germs are bad.
Not all germs are bad, right? That's a good one. And how about we have an immune system, right? And so the immune system helps us. And so that's why the host is so important overall. And so we can't control the germ. That's what I want you guys to know. We can control the host. We can't control the germ. We can control the host. I love this, Dr. T.
I know. So D.D. Palmer, if you don't know who he is, he's got a nice beard, but he's the developer of chiropractic. Okay, so this is a really good quote. I desire to know why one person was ailing and his associate eating at the same table, working at the same bench, at the same shop. Why? What it was that is not getting sick. Or in these two persons that hasn't...
He was a little wordy back in the day. This is a guy like in 1895 who's writing stuff.
You should see his green books, his philosophy books. They're about this big.
So give an analogy for what you're saying there.
The best analogy is, let's say you have a classroom of preschoolers. Preschoolers like to slobber all over things, maybe chew on toys, they're hugging each other, they're slapping high fives, they're sharing snacks, maybe they even spit at each other too. And let's say it's the flu season, right? And you got 25 kids, and 5 of them get sick, but then the other 20 don't. Why?
They have a better immune system.
They have a better immune system, right? It all comes back to the host. So the strength of the host is the outcome, the desired outcome of the germ versus host.
And I think that's pretty cool differentiation between, again, the allopathic model and the vitalistic model. Is when you look at an allopathic model in medical doctors, and this is a general thing, but generally medical doctors ask, how do we get symptoms to go away, right? They don't ask, why is one person healing and another person not healing? And so that's just a stark difference between the two.
And BJ Palmer. Some say I look like this guy when I have a beard, but BJ Palmer has really furthered chiropractic in research. And this quote says it all. It's perfect. If the germ theory of disease were correct, there'd be no one left living to believe it. Makes sense, right? So what is a virus? A virus is the smallest subset of microbes. So small, you can't see it. It's invisible. And it's made of nucleic acids, somewhat of genetic material, but the important thing is viruses aren't alive, they're not living, they never are. So the millions and millions of viruses aren't just lurking around. When you turn that corner, they're not there waiting for you, okay? To give you an idea of how many viruses there are in this world, we really don't even know, but the count is unbelievable. They say that you can give one virus per star over 100 million times, okay? So when we go into viruses, last thing that's really important is the virus just doesn't affect you or invade you or attack you. It's opportunistic. So when the environment is not normal, meaning you have a weakened or compromised immune system, that's when the virus will attack the cell. And when it attacks the cell, it uses your cell's DNA, your cell's RNA to start to multiply and replicate. So without us, viruses are nothing. They don't have the machinery to do anything. It just relies on our strength, our immune system, and how we support our bodies.
Isn't that kind of weird? Like, don't you guys, I feel like with what you see on the news and everything, don't you feel like viruses are running around like trying to jump on us and make us sick? Like, that's literally, isn't that what they make it seem like? Is that they're out there attacking us and there's something to be scared of. And you realize that viruses, like you said, they're inert. They're not even living.
No.
They're not living at all. Viruses are not living things. They're just little fragments of DNA that are around that can have an effect on you if you're not taking care of yourself.
This is how so not living they are. Scientists seem to come up with an answer for everything, and I did quite a bit of research, and there's a lot of theories on where viruses come from, and no one can seem to agree because they're not living, right? They can't figure out how they just came to be. But when we talk about the coronavirus, first and foremost, it's a virus. It's in the name, right? Corona is not scary. They just call it corona because it looks like a crown under a microscope, okay? So coronaviruses, there's hundreds of them that we know of, right? Arguably hundreds and hundreds more we don't know about. But of all those hundreds of coronaviruses, only 7 of them actually affect humans. And then one of those 7 is the common cold. How many of you have had a common cold that have supported their immune system, drank lots of water, went to get their adjustments, took their supplements, followed the 5 essentials, and you're okay, right? So our bodies are capable. Over time, we have started to lose the trust in ourselves and the trust that, we have everything inside of us that we need. Right now, with everything going on, politically, news, social media, all of these things, it almost seems like it's driving people to fear. Does anyone feel that way? And when you are fearful or you're stressed, it starts to depress your immune system. And not only when you're under anxiety and depressed or feel that fearful feeling, it causes inflammation. And we all know when you have inflammation, it makes you prone for a weakened immune system. It makes you prone for chronic disease. We have to start trusting in us again.
And I'll also say, do you guys know what the death rate is from this virus?
1% or like 0.0.
Mini.
It is so small. And so we're going around and we're completely changing our lives for this thing that is so small. And don't get me wrong, when you're thinking about your health and your family's health, there's no right or wrong, there's no shaming, there's no guilt. That's not what this is about. I just want you to be equipped with information so that you recognize when the host is okay, the whole equation changes. That's the biggest thing to understand. If you're somebody with a weakened host, well then, it might be a good idea to be a little bit precautionary and not be in, rooms full of hundreds of people and wear a mask and that kind of thing overall. But for the general public, understand for your kids who are 2 and 4 and 6 years old, they don't need to be walking around with the mask on. Their chances of getting this, let alone dying from it, are so low it's completely ridiculous. And this whole thing was totally inflamed. I think you guys saw this happen, but this whole thing was totally inflamed with, I don't even know what the height of the deaths were in the country, but I think it was like 100 and some thousand, like a little over 100 and some thousand was the height of deaths. Until a couple months ago, did everybody see that the CDC completely took those deaths down to under 10,000 deaths? Why? Because they were labeling everything COVID. Everybody was dying of COVID. You know what nobody died from this year? The flu.
Yeah.
Right? And so, and I'm not kidding, everything else, all of these things in the hospitals that you were seeing, all of them were siphoned into COVID to the point where they took over 100,000 deaths and they made them under 10,000. And what they found is in those very small percent, I think it's like 4 or 6% of people that
4%.
died from the virus, they had on average 2.6 comorbidities. 2.6 comorbidities, meaning diabetes, heart disease, high cholesterol. This is somebody who in general isn't healthy in the first place. And so there's nothing to say, that we shouldn't sometimes maybe focus on containing the germ. It's just in a vitalistic philosophy, under a chiropractic philosophy, you're attacking the wrong thing. You're going the wrong way. What if as a nation, like when is Fauci going to get up and start actually saying, let's support our immune system. Let's take supplements. Let's get outside. Let's exercise. Let's boost our immune system and get adjusted. Like when are people going to start talking about that? Because that's the core of this issue. We shouldn't have to worry about the next novel virus coming up. And David went like this, which is hitting the nail on the head, right? It's all about money. And so, Dr. T, I didn't mean to steal your thunder there, but we were talking earlier about vaccines. And so, and I don't want to get into a vaccine debate necessarily, but I do think it's important. Were you going to say anything on this, or do you want me to touch on it?
You can touch on it.
Yeah. So what I think is important about vaccines to understand is most vaccines take years to develop. They are trying to fast track a COVID vaccine. Why? For people who are dying less than 1% of the time, and they're going to try to mass market this to you guys, right, in a state of fear. And so I challenge you to think about, am I going to get this before it happens? And there's no right or wrong. I just want you to know that it usually, I'm right there with you, David. He goes, no way. But something that usually takes years to develop is trying to be fast-tracked in a very short period of time. I wouldn't trust it. Because I can tell you, if you go back and you look at the pharmaceutical companies and you look at their history of recalling things for the damage that they've caused back in the 80s, I don't even know what the medication is off the top of my head that caused all these birth defects in women. It was some sort of like birth control or something like that. There's medication after medication after medication that's been withdrawn, and there's no repercussions for it. And so, Dr. T, do you have any stats on I don't know much about the vaccine injury.
So I'll say this first. Just people are waking up to being healthy, how to be healthy, trusting in themselves, really thinking about what they're putting in their body. I've seen many polls and like randomized studies that are suggesting around like 70% of people say they aren't going to take a vaccine that comes out. So let's hope those numbers are real. Just right now, to what we're all talking about is we have everything inside of us. It's plain and simple, and I could say it till I'm blue in the face. We just have to support ourselves. The last thing, we had the pleasure to hear Dr. Judy Mikovits speak at a seminar we were at a couple months ago. She's a PhD, she's a researcher, and she has based her whole career studying vaccines. She's been labeled all kinds of things over the years, from anti-vax to probably crazy woman, and words she said that I'm not going to repeat if my mom's listening. So, But one thing that she did say, and she was talking about, are vaccines safe, and if she would ever take one. And she's an expert. She's developed vaccines for AIDS.
She did research on the HIV vaccine back in the 80s when all of this was, when all of that was, kind of going down. She was literally in the lab doing research on AIDS and the vaccine for AIDS.
The one thing that stood out to me was she said, would I ever take a vaccine? And she said, yeah, one. And we were like, I thought you were going to say none, but what is that one? She goes, well, the rabies vaccine. Because if you get rabies, rabies has worse side effects than the vaccine does. But that'd be the only one to take, right? If you have rabies, you're going to die. If you have something to save your life, you want to take it, okay? One thing that she harps on in a book that she wrote is about vaccine cork. And we all have heard stories of someone maybe having a serious detrimental side effect from a medication or maybe even a vaccine. And what these corks do is they protect the pharmaceutical companies that maybe produce these vaccines or drugs and are able to put them out into the market. So they're not liable for any injuries.
There's absolutely no consequence to the vaccine industry. No consequence to the vaccine industry in this country. None.
If they were so safe, this cork would not have to exist. And the last thing I'll say is people that have kids that have been severely injured or even have died, they're not allowed to legally search for information or why the vaccine killed them, or really even the death certificate. It's to protect the companies that create these things, and if it were safe, and if they knew it was safe, that would not exist.
And I'll also say the flu vaccine, there's 3 different research articles that I can send you. One of them Dr. T read and I've heard of, I haven't read it myself, but it shows that the flu vaccine, and this is done way before COVID, and the flu vaccine actually increases your risk of contracting respiratory viruses by 36%. And so if you're going to get the flu vaccine this year, understand that everything has an adverse effect. And so I think what Dr. Judy said is brilliant. The idea is weigh your benefits and risks, and what's worse? Is it worse to get the flu? And trust me, the flu feels awful, but is it worse to get the flu, or is it worse to have the side effects of the flu vaccine? That's totally up to you, but just something to think about overall.
Just look at the ingredients that they put in those. Aluminum and
And you could go down a whole list of what's wrong with each ingredient, or what foreign DNA does when it's injected into a body. It causes disease. So there's a lot of things you can talk about, but.
And so I want to give you guys this little bit of a frame shift too. So what if I told you all bacteria was bad? What would you tell me? Wrong.
Yeah, right.
We know that there are good bacteria that exist within our guts. What if there are good viruses in the world? And so this is a research study that's fascinating, and they've done a ton of research on this too, and they talk about the beneficial effects of viruses. And so this says the word virus connotates morbidity and mortality, but that bad reputation is not universally deserved. Viruses, like bacteria, can be important beneficial microbes in human health and agriculture. In sharp contrast to the gastrointestinal distress it causes in humans, the murine neurovirus, which is a mouse infecting virus, plays a role in development of the mouse intestine and its immune system, and can actually replace beneficial effects of certain gut bacteria when they have been destroyed by antibiotics. So they found when a mouse has their gut destroyed by antibiotics, this virus then gives protection to it. This one is even more mind-blowing. Latent herpes viruses also arm natural killer cells, an important component of the immune system, which kill both mammalian tumor cells and cells that are infected with pathogenic viruses. So there's studies out there that show that actually having herpes might be good for you. It might be protecting you. I know that sounds silly, but it literally might be protecting you. If you have cold sores, that might protect you from cancer. And so what if some viruses were good for you? I think that's an important reframe within your life overall. And again, just because the medical model tells us something is bad, we have to start digging and asking questions. So I'm not going to show you this video I'll send it to you if you want. It's just a video that shows the amazingness of the immune system. We just kind of talked a little bit, and I want to respect your time. But basically, it shows all of the immune molecules that exist within you. And so you have so many cells and organs that are involved in your immune system. And so your immune system, the cells that we all know about are your white blood cells, right? Your white blood cells, there are 6 categories of them. The 2 that I really want you to know about are your T cells and your B cells. The difference between the 2, your T cells are the cells that go out and kill bad things. Your B cells to come, and your B cells create the memory that creates antibodies within your body overall. But if you saw the number of reactions that happen within the immune system, it is tens of thousands. There is no way that man can replicate this. Your immune system is so strong, God is so perfect in his entirety that he knows exactly what to do within you, and we have to start to believe in that and to support it overall. And so a lot of people don't realize the connection between your gut and the immune system. Your gut is so important. 70% of your immune system is housed within your gut. And so if you're walking around, and you have been for the last 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, trashing your gut because you're eating what tastes good and what makes you feel good, you might want to start to think differently. So Dr. T, what's one thing that trashes the gut?
Sugar.
And so research shows 75 grams of sugar suppresses your immune system by up to 5 hours. And 75 grams might sound like a lot to you. Well, let's talk about 75 grams of sugar. Your one soda that you're still drinking has 32 grams of sugar in it. Your chai tea latte from Starbucks has 42 grams of sugar in it. And then you add on the sugar that comes from, and this day and age, we have to be careful with even fruit sugars, I'd say too, just because I think that compounds the other sugar, even though those sugars in and of themselves aren't bad. But you add that onto the fruit or the candy or the dessert, to the starchy carbs that all break down into sugar within your diet, and man, are you consuming probably a heck of a lot more than 75 grams of sugar on a regular basis. How about the sugary cereal that your kids eat? Your pizza that you have for dinner, and all of that over time compounds and continues to destroy the gut. What's another one?
Antibiotics.
Yeah, antibiotics. Antibiotics are like an atom bomb in your gut. Sure, they kill the bad bacteria, but understand they kill the good bacteria too. And there's so much research done that shows antibiotics over and over and over again sets kids and therefore adults up for things like allergies, asthma. It increases your risk of focus issues, of fibromyalgia, of all kinds of things that occur because of antibiotics within the gut. I think antibiotics and steroids are 2 things that I would stay away from at all costs, unless you really, 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 really need it. But again, just because you're expressing symptoms, I had a guy come in today, he's having knee pain, and they did a blood test on him, and his white blood cells are elevated. He has knee pain, that's why he went in. His white blood cells are elevated, so they're giving him antibiotics to take care of his knee pain, and they told him if that doesn't help, then we'll go in and do an MRI to see if it's a meniscus issue or a tear within a ligament or something like that. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And so how much do we throw these things around, and how much does that have an effect on the body that we don't even know about? What's another one?
I'm going to say it wrong because it's
Glyphosate.
Glyphosate.
Yeah. So anybody know what glyphosate is? Roundup, yeah.
Pesticides.
So Roundup, by the way, is completely outlawed in the European Union. This is the most widely used pesticide in the entire world. It's probably been used on your front lawn. You've probably consumed a vegetable or a fruit that has been sprayed with Roundup. And Roundup, we have a patient in this office, a former patient, he moved, but he owned an organic farm, and he told me all these stories about Roundup and what happens to crops, etc. Roundup has been shown to cause tumors in rats. It's been proven to cause infertility, to increase risk of cancer, all kinds of things. And so we talk about wheat a lot, and some people ask me, Dr. Elise, why is bread bad? Like in other countries, they make bread and they're fine, and I agree with that. One of the biggest bad things about wheat is glyphosate. Glyphosate is hugely inflammatory, and every time you eat that, that's destroying your gut overall. It's one of the reasons you want to try to do as organic as possible, or at least be familiar with the things that have a less toxic load when it comes to that hold on to the pesticide less. And you can find that information online. It's called The Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15, ewg.org. is a great resource, and they'll tell you the stuff that you should buy organic and the stuff that you can kind of get away with not buying organic. EWG.org, it's called their Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. So the Dirty Dozen are the things you want to always buy organic. The Clean 15 are the things that are generally better for you. And the very last one,
Stress.
toxins. So that's okay. Stress is a big one too, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. And then there's toxicity. So toxicity tends to affect the gut also, and I'll tell you that we're going to go deep into that during the nutrition and detox portion. So I'm going to leave that for that. So Dr. T, are symptoms a good thing or a bad thing?
They're a good thing.
But what if I went and I ate a bunch of E. coli on my spinach and I started puking in the bathroom? I feel so bad. That has to be a bad thing.
I wish you have the best diarrhea and throw up that you've ever had.
But I feel so bad.
But this is exactly what your body was made to do.
So if I didn't throw up, if I didn't get diarrhea, what would happen?
I die.
I would die if I ate that much E. coli. And so I think we need to get away from the mindset that symptoms are a bad thing. Don't get me wrong, chronic symptoms are a bad thing. But understand, when your body produces a fever, when you have a cough that's lasting 4, 6, 8 weeks, that is normal. That is your body doing what it needs to do. Quit suppressing your kid's fever with a Tylenol or your own. Quit trying to take something to make the mucus go away. When you have allergies, quit taking the Zyrtec. I know that it helps you to feel better, but understand your body is responding to something. So symptoms are not a bad thing. We have to start to understand our body and listen to our body when it speaks to us. Does that make sense? So I wanted to touch base also on asymptomatic carriers. So I think this is a big word that's kind of out in the media right now. And I just want you to know, like, what is an asymptomatic carrier? It's somebody who comes into contact with a virus but doesn't express symptoms. What does that sound like?
Somebody's healthy.
A healthy person, okay? An asymptomatic carrier is a healthy person. That is exactly what is supposed to happen. We are in the first time in our entire life, like, you don't go around swabbing people for chicken pox and cold and all this other stuff. Why are we even talking about asymptomatic carriers? It doesn't make any sense. And this goes back to the concept of herd immunity. And herd immunity is important to understand too. Herd immunity is when a population reaches a certain point of infection where most people are, vulnerable people I'd say, are protected. And so there's two ways to reach herd immunity. Number one is naturally, like Sweden, I think, chose to do, where they just let everything go through the population. Number two is to mask ourselves for the rest of our life and wait to get our vaccine for it. And so at some point, you must come in contact with this. You must be either an asymptomatic or a symptomatic carrier. You must. There's no running away from this virus or any other virus in your entire life. You have to come into contact with it. And I hope that you're somebody who has minimal symptoms, or I hope you're somebody that has the best diarrhea in the entire world, because that's exactly what your body needed to do to get rid of it in order to be healthy overall. Does that make sense? And so this asymptomatic carrier thing, healthy people should be among other healthy people getting the virus so that we can move forward from this all. It has to happen. It's not just going to disappear. All right, so what allows a virus to take control? We've hit on a lot of these things: toxicity, lack of nutrients and oxygen, nerve interference, but one that I want to talk about is stress. Put that one there, Dr. It's kind of warm, sorry. I want to talk about stress. I want to get back to why Michelle felt a big difference this year, or this week, with what she did. So there's a guy, his name is Dr. Bruce Lipton. I would write down his name, and I would look up something called the biology of belief.
He has a really good Facebook.
I am part of an elite mastermind group with Tony Robbins, and there's a spirituality trip coming up, and this guy is the guest speaker. He's phenomenal. He has a book that you can buy. I own it, but he also has it free on YouTube. My trick is watch it at 2x speed. That way it doesn't take an hour and a half to watch. It only takes 45 minutes. And so, but this is absolutely fascinating, and it will tell you how energy affects your health overall. So I'm going to give you just a little snippet when it comes to stress. Your body can only be in two states. It can either be in a state of growth, or it will be in a state of protection. Does it make sense to you that your body cannot be growing and protecting at the same time? When you're in a state of growth, you feel things like love. You feel joy. You feel gratitude. One of the reasons gratitude is so powerful, when you're in a depressed state, it is absolutely impossible to feel gratitude and depression at the same time. It is absolutely impossible to feel love and fear at the same time. Or anger over here, right? And so when you're in a state of fear and depression and anger, you are not growing. Your body does not send the signals from your brain to your body that secretes the molecules like growth factor that helps your cells to grow and turn over and to stay healthy. That's why it's so dangerous to live here. So dangerous. And this is what we've been doing for the last 8 months. Now here's an interesting thing. You can be in the middle. And I think what's maybe even more dangerous than protection is indifference. And so I think you have to care about this. I think that you can't just say, well, I don't feel depressed, I don't feel fear, I don't feel anger. Because all of a sudden you're just in this place of indifference and not feeling. You have to actively seek out love, actively seek out joy, actively seek out gratitude in order to be in this space over here. That's why your morning routine is so different, and that's why you had less pain. I have no doubt that you had less pain this week, because this stuff is science, it works. And Bruce Lipton in the Biology of Belief, he will break down everything for you so that you understand it at a molecular level. That's been his life's work overall. So what's the answer? Is the answer to wear a mask, to sterilize? And you guys also realize it's funny how all this happens and you forget all the stuff that happened. You realize that they took antibacterial soaps off the shelves like a year ago or a year and a half ago. You realize that, right? Because the CDC said, oh, we can't do antibacterial, that's so bad, we're going to make these big super bugs instead of just having the bugs that we have overall. And now here we are sterilizing everything. And I understand that some of the things, and it hurts my heart to do it, like this in here, to have you guys not do neck traction and to buy all the crap, excuse my language, shouldn't have said that we've been spraying stuff off on the tables with, and we've been destroying our tables. We just had them redone. I don't believe in it. And I'll tell you that the only reason that I've done it is to keep my doors open. God forbid the health department would come in and to see what we need to do overall. The thing that I did not do is I never put on a mask, and I never told my team that they wear a mask, because to me that's drawing the line. It's not what I believe in. And at some point you have to stand up for what's real and right and true, and not go along with the flow of everything else that's going on within the world. Sterilization, it doesn't make sense. Who is healthier, the city kid or the farm kid that's rolling around in the dirt? Farm kid. Like, we've known this our entire lives, right? Our grandma's like, yeah, put a little dirt on it, keep up, keep walking. That's how, that's what it's supposed to be. It's not the city kid who's in this sterile environment who never comes into contact with any dirt or any, pets or anything like that. It's the kid who comes into contact with things. That's how we build strength within our immune system. And so, of course, the answer comes back to supporting function of the host overall. And so the biggest word that you can walk away with, the biggest lens that you can take from this office in general in your life is, how do I increase function in my life? If I'm expressing a symptom, how do I help my body to function better? Where is the lack of function? And that's why we teach the 5 essentials. And so we just want to go through some things that will help your body to function well, that directly influence the immune system overall.
And you may have heard us say this before, but when you take care of your nervous system consistently, it does in fact improve and strengthen your immune system. People are found to have an increased immune system, a stronger immune system, a stronger competent immune system by 200%.
And the interesting part about this is there's a lot of longevity studies in chiropractic. People come to chiropractic and they come until their back pain's on and then they quit. Right? They come until their neck pain's gone and then they quit. The real benefit of chiropractic is not just in getting your pain to go away, because the idea, of course, is not just to get you over this 60% function mark where you feel pain. The idea is to get you as close to 100% as possible and keep you there. It is the people who were chiropractic patients for 5 years or more that start to have the dramatic benefit of nervous system functioning well and the endo immune system. the nervous system, the hormones, and the immune system are the three systems that come together that keep you healthy overall. You support one of them and you support all three of them overall. The next one is elderberry. Anybody like their shot? Anybody feel a little woozy? I'm just kidding, it's not alcohol. So that's a shot of elderberry syrup. And so elderberry, echinacea, different herbs. One of the reasons a lot of countries outside of the US are healthy is because they tend to use a lot of herbs within their cooking. We use a little bit less herbs, a little bit less flavor within our cooking. But there's some things that have been shown that really help the immune system overall. Elderberry syrup is one of them. And so there's a lot of studies that show that it might shorten the duration of sickness and help to equip your immune system to be healthier overall. And it doesn't taste bad, right? And so that's just a tablespoon that you take the same way you'd take other supplements in order to support the immune system overall.
So zinc, really important. Okay, you can supplement it, or you can get it from nuts and seeds, almonds, cashews, things like that. Red meats, even some avocados. Avocados have some zinc in them. But zinc can reduce the duration of your sickness by 1/3. So if you're feeling like you're starting to get drained, start taking your supplements, making sure zinc is a part of that. Okay?
Zinc is my favorite. Every time that I'm feeling run down, I do zinc, I do vitamin C, I do D3 and probiotics.
All I hear about is zinc.
Yeah, because he was, and by the way, I don't like saying sick, because I think when you say I'm sick, that means like your body is not functioning well. We like to say we're expressing symptoms. And so I'm expressing symptoms. So when Dr. T was expressing symptoms last week, I gave everyone in the office D3, C, and zinc, because I knew that it was going to support him, and I knew that it was going to help all of us who were in contact with him. So zinc, really good. Also, a lot of people ask me like natural antibiotics and antivirals, garlic, oregano oil, and colloidal silver. So those are three that I have on hand at home. Colloidal silver is magical, and so you can get it in a spray or a dropper portion, and that'll help.
What is that?
Colloidal, C-O-L-L-O-I-D-A-L, colloidal, I think I spelled that right. C-O-L-L-O-I-D-A-L, silver.
I'd like to share my own personal testimonial with garlic too. So my first year I was actually in this office, I have all my wisdom teeth, and I had a really bad infection. Fever, couldn't sleep through the night. I was having the shakes. I even was throwing up. And Dr. Elise reached out to another doctor in the network, and he was like, you know what, try garlic. Put it right on the tooth, and that's what I did. And in fact, along with other ways of supporting my health, but like that. So it does support you.
And like, I mean, I know women who get chronic yeast infections who will do like a garlic suppository. And so I know that all of this kind of sounds a little weird. It's weird until you do it, and then it's not weird anymore.
Yeah.
But like when you see something, right? That's with everything. When you see something improve, and you see that this is just a little bit of a different way of doing it, then you're like, man, that stuff works. And you don't have to use actual raw garlic, even though that's very powerful. They have garlic supplements that you can take, oregano oil supplements that you can take that do the same thing. Same thing with the colloidal silver. My dad swears by it. Anybody ever seen My Big Fat Greek Wedding? You know how the guys like put Windex on it? My dad's like, put some colloidal silver on it. That's what my dad does. So he swears by that for everything.
Ooh, immune system support. Vitamin D. So raise your hand if you get, let's say, 9 hours of full body sunlight a day. I wish, but we don't. No one does. That's how much you need to have an adequate amount of vitamin D.
Yes, you need like 90% of your body showing of sunlight. I don't think it's quite 9 hours, but
well,
like
I'd like
20,
9 hours
like
of sun.
20 to 30 minutes though. But honestly, think about this: who gets out in the sun and shows 90% of their body daily in the sun for 20 to 30 minutes a day? None of us, right? And so if you're every single day, if you're not outside sunbathing naked in your backyard, you probably aren't getting enough sunshine. And so you probably need to supplement with vitamin D.
Are you a sunscreener or no?
No, and I can go into that too. Environmental Working Group has a ton of research. There's research, it depends on the type of sunscreen, so yes. But your like regular like beach whatever sunscreen that you buy, there's actually more toxins in that, and it causes cancer. more than it protects you from cancer. So you need to get like a zinc oxide. It's the one that makes you white and it doesn't go, that's the sunscreen that I use. So we're the weird people that are walking around with white all over us. It's not fun, but there's some that do blend in a little bit more, and I can share those with you. But your conventional sunscreens we try to stay away from. The aerosol sunscreens, not good either, because all of that has chemicals in it too when you're spraying it all over somebody.
I've used a raspberry seed oil that works really well too. I've used all kinds of oils, avocados. I've tried all the oils possible, but raspberry seed oil works really well too.
So we do carry D3 and probiotics. I suggest every single person takes that on a regular basis. I have my C at home. I'll be honest with you, I don't take C daily. I take C a couple times throughout the week. It's one of those. Same thing with like the elderberry syrup. I had that bottle in my fridge. I brought it in for you guys just to share it with you. I take that as needed a couple times a week. Zinc, I take that as needed also. And then this is a pretty sweet supplement here, IM Support, that we just came out with. It has echinacea, it has elderberry, it has 4 different types of mushrooms that are shown to support the immune system as well. And so as you guys probably know, whenever we do a bundle here in the office, actually, many of you, this is your first workshop. I usually do these once a month, so welcome. I'm super excited to be doing this with you guys this year. But usually when we do these bundles, we give you a pretty significant discount. So this bundle is $90 for all 4, and then it'll be 20% off if you guys want to grab it. So that's 18 minus 90 is what, 72? And so that's for all 4 of these. This has 120 capsules, 30 capsules, 120 and 90, so they should last you some time. Again, most of these things, minus the D3 and probiotics, you don't have to take daily. These are just kind of a few times a week to help to support the immune system overall. So I wanted to open it up, maybe do 5 minutes of questions.
I just was wondering what the difference is between when you see D3 and just D.
So D3 is the most absorbable form of D. It is the form that you always want to take. It's a different form of D.
I had that question come up a few times when I was at a few other people, because I'm always recommending D.
Yeah. D3, it's the most bioavailable. Bioavailable means when you take it, your body's able to use it. And so you don't want to just take, that's also, I'll tell you, when it comes to supplements, guys, you can't skimp on your supplements. If you're going to go to Walmart and buy a big thing for a year for $10 of your multivitamin, you might as well not buy it at all, because a lot of that can be more dangerous than it is helpful. And a lot of times, like Centrium, you guys have all heard of Centrium, they've done research that like they test people's pee and it literally just all washes through you. You're not absorbing any of it. And so you have to make sure that you're investing in a good, high quality supplement so that your body is able to absorb and use the nutrients that you got from the supplement. So great question. So D3 is just the form that you want to get. It's the most bioavailable, best form for your body overall. We also put that with probiotics because this helps it to be more absorbable as well. Any other questions?
Question. How do we know what is the correct colloidal silver?
So anything that you buy in the store should be good. They have dropper forms and spray forms.
Oh.
But you can just go to Whole Foods or the vitamin shop and they just sell colloidal silver. Yeah, it's in parts per million. And you're not going to have too much of it. You don't have to worry about, the silver is too small to collect in your body. You don't have to worry about like any toxicity issues or anything like that. And most of them will be like, I think 100 parts per million or something of that nature.
Oh.
Yeah, and it'll tell you how to take it on the back.
Where do you feel you should draw the line between allowing yourself exposure to just everything and cleaning, and you know, with kids and everything, it's like obviously you have to be clean.
Yes.
But where do you kind of draw that line?
I'm not saying don't clean. So I think cleaning is great. But no, I think that's a great question. Thank you for asking it. It's just clean with the right things. There's things that clean that don't destroy everything, like vinegar and water solutions, essential oil solutions. You know, we get better with the Myers. Myers isn't the greatest, I'll be honest with you. But at home, like I use Norwex products. Once in a while we have a Norwex rep come in and all of their stuff is laced with silver, which again is antibacterial. All you have to do is put water on it and wipe, and we have a bunch of Norwex towels that we use. So you just have to get creative with like your cleaning. We just don't want to use like bleach on everything. And what does clean smell like? Fabulosa?
Not like bleach.
Right? So like what does clean smell like? It's not supposed to smell like chemicals in your house when you get done cleaning. It's just supposed to be wiped off and clean. You know, I kind of think about it like my my cast iron pan. Like I don't use soap in my cast iron pan and I'm fine, and I use my cast iron pans every single day. It's just water that you like wipe it out with and you put oil on it. And so clean, you know, doesn't mean that I'm not using anything, but it just means that I'm using more natural things. So I suggest you like essential oils and come up with your own cleaners, which tend to be cheaper, or just look into the ones that don't have bad products. And I can give you a list of things. Like the top things that you want to stay away from are SLS, sodium lauryl sulfate, which is like it's a foamer that makes things soapy. So like especially in your shampoo and your conditioner, you want to stay away from that. We're going to talk about a lot of that during the detox week, and I'm going to tell you the stuff to take to stay away from.
Kind of a part two to that question with babies. What is the difference with their immune system versus my older kids and us? Being that my kids are in school, we don't do masks, we don't do any of that stuff, so they're bringing home germs.
Yeah, I think kids are stronger than we are. And I say that because they're not injured the way that we are through thoughts, traumas, and toxins within our lives. Like babies are perfect. Like their immune systems are made perfectly. We shouldn't have to worry about a baby getting anything. And instead, it's so backwards. We look at babies as we look at pregnant women again as if they have a condition. And then we look at babies as if they're these fragile creatures, which they definitely need love, but they are made perfectly and they are made to fight things off. We're the ones that trash the bodies that lead us to where we are when we're older. And so your original question is, what about babies in what way? Like, I think it's fine for them to come in contact with everything, and I'm not a mom, so I can't like fully speak to what I'm going to do. I can only speak to what I think I'm going to do, but what I think I'm going to do is just let my kids play.
And that's what I do with my older ones, you know, just with, it's just been on my mind lately with they're about to be here, and I'm just trying to find that kind of happy medium and everything happening.
I think
having the babies at home and being out and about.
Yeah, I think that you don't have to worry, and I think that you have to do what's in your gut and what you think is right, because I think that this is one of the most powerful things in the world. If you're scared because I tell you to do something and you don't agree with it and it doesn't resonate in your gut, you shouldn't do it. My cousin got cancer a couple years ago, breast cancer. She's 30 years old, and she's talking with me on the phone, and she's like, do I do chemo, radiation, and surgery, or do I go the natural route? And I'm like, to be honest, you just have to do with what's within you, because that's what's going to work for you. No matter what, we have to change the 5 essentials. Like if I got cancer, I wouldn't be doing the chemo and the radiation and the surgery personally, but I just feel so steeped in what I believe that I know if I'm going to heal, it's going to be the other way. But there's, again, no shame in somebody going that route if that's what they feel is the best thing for them. So I think you just have to pray on that. And I'm sorry that that's not a good answer. What I would do, I'd be out with my kids, walking around, not thinking about anything, letting my kids live and doing what I think seems logical to me. I hope that's a good answer.
No, it is. And that's where my mind is.
Yeah.
It's just something
Scary.
you overthink.
Yeah, it's scary. Absolutely. It's scary.
I know you had mentioned about like asymptomatic carriers and stuff. So for example, like both of my parents are cancer survivors. And so that's why I wear a mask. And so with that being said, let's say if I was asymptomatic and I didn't wear my mask around them, you know, what would be like the contribution or non-contribution to them, because your immune systems are obviously compromised.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. So it's not a perfect world. I'm speaking in perfect worlds. And
exactly.
So I get it. I mean, is there a chance that they could come in contact with the virus, and because their cells are susceptible that they could get the virus and have a bad reaction to it? Sure.
Just like,
Yeah. So what should they do? Strengthen the host, just like everybody should do. That's kind of the, right, strengthen the host.
I have a question, going back to the vitamins. What kind of vitamin do I take if I'm vitamin D deficient? Would it be the same one?
Yes.
Or is it a stronger one?
Nope.
Or?
This one is, this has 5,000 IUDs in every capsule. The average person needs between 5 and 10,000 IUDs. Very hard to overdose on D3. So if you know that you're significantly deficient, you could even go 7-10 days and you could do 20,000. I had a pretty severe infection one time about 5 years back, and I was taking 5 of those, so 5, 10, 15, 25,000 in the morning, 25,000 in the evening. So I was doing 50,000 a day to get through that infection. So you're not going to overdose on it, but you can definitely do, you know, maybe 10 to 20,000 IUDs for an extended period of time. Then you can go back, get tested. They can tell you you're okay, and then you can figure out what you can do to maintain, which is usually between 5 and 10,000 IUDs. Yeah, good question.
I'm actually glad she asked that. What's the difference between vitamin D3 supplements and vitamin D prescriptions?
So a lot of prescriptions should be D3. D3 is the best form for it. The only thing a prescription is doing is allowing you to have a higher dosage within a pill. But for most people, 5,000 to 10,000 IUDs, our dosage is pretty high in general for most of what we do. So especially like the vitamin C, if we ever get the powdered version back in, a teaspoon of that has like 2,569 milligrams of vitamin C, which is insane. And you're not going to find that on the shelf. So a prescription version just tends to be a higher dosage. Yes. I think D3 is better. If that's true, I don't know that. I'll look into it. So thank you for letting me know. I do know that D3 is the better version of it. Yeah. I'll have to look into that. She said that it might be D2's version.
I wasn't sure. I didn't want to ask and be wrong.
That's okay. I just said something that was wrong apparently, so that's okay. We can be wrong. But yeah, I'll look into that. But as far as I know, D3 is the better version to take.
The CEPA's ultra concentrated fish oil. They have.
Oh, that's right. They
Yeah.
on that too. We got them on that. So.
Any other questions? Amanda?
So I know you said you take these as needed, which is what I do, but I give my kids these 3 vitamins on a daily basis. That's okay?
Yeah, sure.
They don't, these ones you don't.
You can take them on a daily basis. It's just as expensive, right? And so if you're going to go and take all of these supplements and then you're sitting there and you're like, oh my God, I'm tossing all these supplements down, it's expensive. What I take on a daily basis is my Max Essentials pack. And so this has, I do take D3 on a daily basis, but this has B complex, omega, D3 and probiotics, magnesium, and the multivitamin. I take this on a daily basis. So it's 5 of them. Say it again. It's just, they're little packets inside of them. They're called essential packs. And so literally it's also nice because you just take your pack and you go to work and you take it at work or you take it in the car or whatever. So everything is in a little packet for you to take with you, which makes it super easy. These are the ones that I take regularly, and I think that most people can do very well with taking these regularly. I just take those as needed. Why? To save money. So instead of buying all of this, and also because I don't really like taking supplements, to be honest with you. Like I don't like the pill swallowing thing. I'd rather have everything in a liquid or a powder form. Michelle, did you have a question?
I had a comment, from personal experience, the oregano oil, it cuts fever. You have an earring, you put it wherever your ear hurts, and less than a minute it's gone. Personal experience.
Yeah, it's good. Oregano oil, garlic, and colloidal silver, super powerful. So awesome, guys. So start reading your book, and if you want to, again, before you leave today, if you just want to take a couple minutes or on the way home, think or talk out loud with whoever you're with about the one thing that you're going to implement this week. One thing to elevate your health.